Giyu Tomioka is one of the strongest Hashira in Demon Slayer. He's calm, he's quiet, and most of the time, he barely shows any emotion. But have you ever wondered why Giyu is so distant from everyone? Why does he always look like he's carrying something heavy? And why does he believe that he doesn't deserve to be a Hashira? The answer goes back to a childhood filled with loss, and to two people who changed Gaida's entire life. This is the tragic backstory of Giyu Tomioka, the loneliest Hashira. Before Giyu became a Hashira, he was just a young boy living with his older sister, Tsutako Tomioka. Tsutako was extremely important to Giyu. She was not just his sister, she was the person who protected him and cared for him. But one night, everything changed. Tsutako was supposed to get married the next day, but that night a demon entered their home. Tsutako realized that Giyu was in danger, and instead of saving herself she chose to protect her little brother. Tsutako died that night, but Giyu survived. And that survival would become one of the biggest reasons he struggled with himself for years. After losing his sister, Giyu was left completely alone. But there was another problem. People around him believed that Giyu had become mentally unstable after the tragedy. He was eventually sent to live with a relative. But Giyu didn't stay there. He ran away because he wanted to become strong enough to fight demons. Eventually, his path led him to a man who would completely change his life. Sakinji Urakodaki. Urakodaki took Giyu in and began training him to become a demon slayer. But Giyu wasn't naturally confident. He was carrying the guilt of surviving when his sister didn't. And that feeling would become even worse after he met another young swordsman. His name was Sabito. Sabito was almost the complete opposite of Giyu. He was confident, determined, and extremely talented with a sword. The two trained together under Urakodaki. And for Giyu, Sabito became more than just another student. He became someone Giyu could look up to. But then came the final selection. Giyu and Sabito entered the final selection. The goal was simple: survive 7 days on a mountain filled with demons. But the reality was far more brutal. Many of the participants were completely unprepared for what they were about to face. And when Sabito saw other candidates in danger, he didn't just focus on surviving. He went after the demons himself. Sabito fought demon after demon. He protected the other candidates and defeated almost every demon on the mountain. But eventually, he faced the hand demon, the same demon that had a connection to Urakodaki's past. Sabito fought it, but he was killed. And here's the part that completely destroyed Giyu. Giyu survived the final selection, but he didn't believe he deserved to. Giyu believed that Sabito was the one who truly deserved to become a demon slayer. Sabito had saved everyone. Sabito had fought the demons. Sabito had given his life. And Giyu, he was still alive. From that point forward, Giyu began questioning his own worth. He didn't see himself as a real Hashira. He felt like he was living in a position that should have belonged to Sabito. Giyu survived the final selection, but he didn't believe he deserved to. And there's a detail about Gaida's clothing that makes his story even more emotional. Have you ever noticed that his hair is split into two completely different designs? One side belonged to Giyu himself, and the other side belonged to Sabito. Giyu wore it as a reminder of the person who sacrificed his life. Every time Giyu put on that hair, he was carrying a piece of Sabito with him. This is why Giyu isn't simply a quiet or emotionless character. His personality was shaped by loss. He lost his sister, then he lost Sabito. And both times, Giyu was the one who survived. So instead of trying to get close to people, Giyu became distant. He focused on his duty. He kept moving forward, and he rarely allowed himself to show what he was actually feeling. But then Giyu met Tanjiro. At first, Giyu saw Tanjiro as another demon slayer, but Tanjiro was different. He reminded Giyu of something he had almost forgotten: the importance of protecting someone you care about. Tanjiro was willing to risk everything to protect Nezuko, and that reminded Giyu of the same thing Tsutako had done for him. She had sacrificed herself so that Giyu could live. Over time, Giyu began to understand something. Surviving didn't mean that he was unworthy. Sabito's sacrifice didn't mean Giyu had to spend the rest of his life punishing himself. The best way to honor the people he lost was to keep living and protect others with the life they had given him. And that's what makes Gaida's character so powerful. He didn't become strong because he had nothing to lose. He became strong because he had already lost so much. Giyu Tomioka may look like the coldest Hashira, but behind that silence is a person who lost almost everyone he cared about. His sister gave her life for him. Sabito gave his life protecting others. And for years, Giyu carried the guilt of being the one who survived. That's why calling him simply the quiet Hashira doesn't tell the whole story. Giyu wasn't emotionless. He was carrying too many emotions to show them. Asterisk asterisk. And maybe that's what makes Giyu one of the most tragic characters in Demon Slayer. What do you think? Was Giyu really the loneliest Hashira? Tell me in the comments. And if you want more Demon Slayer character stories, subscribe to Bandolf Zone.